Men have been conditioned our entire lives to give, 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 to bend ourselves into whatever shape is required to keep things smooth and to make sure that everyone else is happy and to stay in people's good graces. We're told that we're lucky to have a woman in our life. But here's the truth. Constantly giving or giving in does not always make us loved or even appreciated. Many times it makes us unappreciated and disposable. And that's because no one respects a man who compromises his values just to keep the peace. And no woman of quality will cherish a man who never takes a stand. To be the man who's desired, respected, and actually seen for the value that you bring often requires us to stop bending and to stop apologizing for who we are and what we stand for. In a world that tells us to make everyone else comfortable, many men have been trained to think that our value lies in how well we can mold to someone else's needs. Today's discussion is about the moment you walk away, and others being in the position in which they have to look back and realize that they'll never find anyone who can stand like you. It's about creating space in your life that no one can take for granted. And I'll show the positive psychology of walking away by referring to three solid frameworks: Reactance Theory, Attachment Theory, and Stoic Philosophy.
It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life.
Reactance Theory is about asserting values that reinforce non-negotiable standards. As first introduced by American psychologist Jack W. Brem in 1966, when someone feels that their ability to choose or react freely is restricted, they experience an unpleasant motivational state. That's psychological reactance. And it drives them to reassert their autonomy and restore that lost freedom. And the clearest, loudest, most effective way to do that is to walk away as if the person who removed your autonomy no longer matters. Reactance becomes obvious whenever someone tries to control another person's choices. Imagine a situation in which a woman tells a man that he can't leave until he apologizes for something that he doesn't believe he did wrong. The moment that demand is made, the issue stops being the argument and starts becoming a restriction of his freedom to choose his own response. Reactance theory predicts that people will try to restore that lost freedom as quickly as possible. And in this case, the man restores it by refusing the premise entirely. He doesn't debate the demand, negotiate an apology, or ask permission for him to go. He simply walks out of the room. Because his departure is not about winning the argument, it's about reasserting his autonomy. Too many men fail to understand that sticking around when she's restricting autonomy sends the wrong message. I'm here to tell you that that's not loyalty. It's sticking around for reasons like fear or codependence. The longer you remain in her dynamic, the more you reinforce her belief that you'll always be there. But when you refuse to subject to the demands and you leave without words or theatrics, you dismiss the narrative and reclaim your autonomy. More recently, in 2006, social psychologists Myron and Jack Brem, mentioned just a moment ago, reactance does not serve as just a defense against control. It actually becomes a self-directed power move. So when she assumes that you'll just sit there and participate in her chaos, no matter how many times she disrespects you, walking away forces her to recognize the value that she's been disrespecting. Guys also often underestimate that women test us, but this is not a game. If you never walk away from her for 10 minutes or 2 days to clear the air and to allow her to consider her consequences, she starts seeing you as an emotional utility. She knows you'll pick up the phone in a few minutes, and she knows that you'll show up as soon as she's ready to talk and to ask. And if it happens enough times, she knows she does not even have to earn your time or your resources, and that the consequences don't matter. And this is the moment you correct that mistake with your feet. Let her feel what your absence feels like, and that you're fine with her trying to find a replacement. Let her finally understand what you were giving her, not by reminding her, but by taking it away from her. Relying on reactance theory is your crossroad to regaining your chaos-free autonomy. and a very clear refusal to be treated like a second-class citizen in your own life. Remember that you are not a backup plan or a presence that she misunderstood as a permanent fixture. And once you've walked, there's no going back. You've burned the bridge that she has never been worthy of crossing in the first place. So good. Let it burn. But reclaiming autonomy by walking away is only half of the equation. The deeper question is this: what kind of man actually has the emotional stability and capacity to do it? Because many men understand the logic of walking away, yet still find themselves frozen in place when the moment arrives. And that hesitation has far less to do with courage than it has to do with emotional wiring. And this is where attachment theory comes in. There's a difference between walking away to make a point and walking away because you don't chase anyone. Period. The latter is not a cheap tactic. It's a mindset that's rooted in secure attachment. Developed by British psychiatrist Bowlby, attachment theory explains that securely attached individuals don't need to beg, plead, or perform any type of emotional gymnastics to be seen or heard. They don't rely on others to confirm their value. This means that walking away with your dignity intact is the clearest signal that you're emotionally grounded. You're not exiting because you're afraid of what she or others might think of you, but because you recognize that your life would be more fulfilling on your own. Imagine this. You're at her place, and she's on her third passive-aggressive comment about how you never show up, while she's been avoiding a serious discussion about finding an apartment together for months. You've already communicated your expectations like a grown man, and now she's sitting there acting like your self-worth is a group project. So you stand up, hand her the remote, and you head for the door without a word. Because you'd rather sip whiskey in peace and explore the world alone than stay chained to a woman who thinks love is earned through endurance. That is secure attachment. Despite what she'll say to her coworkers about you being an avoidant prick, you didn't storm out of drama. You were done because you finally realized that you're not an emotional beggar. And more recently, prominent contemporary researchers expanded Bowlby's research by showing that secure attachment is about being emotionally strong enough to walk away when your needs are not met or your principles are not respected. A secure man recognizes when a situation has lost its value and he doesn't hesitate to leave. He doesn't explain himself endlessly or try to convince someone why his standards matter. He simply communicates once, maybe twice if there's potential for real understanding, and then he acts. Because what he values most is not the relationship, but rather his integrity in the relationship and within himself. That's when you've upgraded to a man who knows that he does not need to stay where he's not appreciated. And when you walk away, insecure partners panic. Because without you validating them, they're forced to sit with their own emptiness as a result of consequences that they have already been very well made aware of. Walking away tells her and everyone else, including yourself, that you're not controlled by insecurity, fear of loss, or emotional dependency. And that's what separates a man with standards from a man who chases. So secure attachment explains why a man doesn't cling to relationships that violate his standards. By the way, if you're interested in some of the research and readings behind the videos like this, I've started posting breakdowns of research papers and other ideas over on Patreon, and I'll put a link in the video description for that. It's all brand new. But going a bit deeper is how a man develops that kind of internal stability in the first place. And for that, we turn from psychology to Stoic philosophy. As many of you are very well aware, mastering one's inner world builds virtue and resilience by removing the need for external validation. Believing that there's power and respect in pleasing is the fairy tale that you've been sold by 20-year-old TikTok dating coaches from Santa Barbara. It's the idea that if you just show up, stay calm, absorb her moods, and buy her shit, then you'll earn her commitment. But Stoicism didn't build men like that. And there's thousands of years of history to provide evidence. Stoicism built men who stood alone in the storm and became better for it. If you can't be fine while being alone, you'll never be free. Because a man who can't walk away for a day or forever is a man who is someone else's prop. As modern authors on Stoic philosophy, Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman contended that the Stoic doesn't chase peace, but rather cultivates it internally. I'll put some of their books on the screen here and Amazon links with them in the description, and I highly recommend reading them for anyone that's interested in more about Stoic philosophy. When men with this mindset know that the external world is full of too many moving parts, and if your emotional state fluctuates based on how you're treated or validated day to day, you're just a cog in someone else's machine. Men who require external validation don't stay with a woman because the relationship is healthy. They stay because they're fearful and they've confused loyalty with captivity. Picture being a grown-ass man who just spent his Saturday driving 40 minutes to some overpriced farmer's market because she felt like driving to the country but didn't want to go alone. So there you stand. Well, she's posting selfies in front of organic squash. And then she snaps at you because you winced at the price of goat milk. A Stoic man wouldn't even be there. He'd be at home on his patio, listening to Chopin, sipping black coffee, and reading about the Roman Empire. He'd be cultivating internal peace because no one's telling him that his energy is off. That is solitude of Stoicism. Because of society's emphasis on relationships, most men have never tasted true solitude, and I think that's a problem. They've always been trying to fill some emotional void by holding on to someone who barely sees them. And beneath it all, the reason it feels so hard to walk away and to be alone is because you've been shamed and tricked into not being alone. That's what happens when society has habituated us to believe that men are alone because they're afraid of commitment, or that they're not man enough to get and to keep a real woman. You've been taught that being alone means something's wrong with you, and that a man without a woman is deficient. I'm telling you, that's bullshit. In fact, some of the most interesting, productive, and solid men that I know have been single for years or decades. Stoic philosophy extinguishes that confusion by teaching that strength doesn't come from clinging and pleasing, it comes from internal, mindful clarity. Italian-American philosopher Matteo Pigliucci further elaborates that Stoic detachment is about filtering, which includes the very process of weeding out women who do not belong in your life. When feeling like he's running a daycare with wine and astrology, a Stoic would not continue to argue. He would walk. He would filter her out by letting her stand there in her own meltdown while he grabs his keys and leaves her on red for eternity. You let them disqualify themselves with their own behavior. Just clean exits with quiet clarity. So, learn to love your own company so much that anyone who wants access to you will match your peace or get left behind. Remember that if you enjoy the research side of my videos, I started posting some of the breakdowns and material that don't make it into my YouTube content over on Patreon. Check that link. Thanks for staying to the end. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you all soon.